Welcome back, Boat Dragons. I'm so glad you've joined me today. I am here to talk to you about some of my favorite characters in book series that I have read over the years. Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list. It's not a top 10, it's not a top 5, it's not any of those, it's not even ranked. These are just female characters that have really stuck out to me, and I really appreciate the way that they're written, and I enjoy their characters. I am a character-driven reader, so there are a bunch of other female characters that I like, but I didn't want the video to go too long, so we're just going to focus on the ones that have really stuck out to me, okay? So sit with me for a spell, and let's talk about some of my favorite female characters, okay? And got to put my eyes on so I don't say somebody that I didn't mean to say. And here we go. Now, my first one on the list is an honorable mention, and she's an honorable mention because I have already elaborated on her character in a previous video. And that would be Daenerys Targaryen, the Unburnt, first of her name, protector of the Seven Kingdoms, queen of the Andals and the First Men, and mother of dragons. Yes, that's correct. She is definitely one of my favorite characters, but I talked about her in my top 5 characters from A Song of Ice and Fire. So if you want to hear me talk more about her, go check out that video. I will leave a link in the cards at the end so that you can find that video easily and watch to your little heart's content, okay? But she's a fantastic character. I really just love exploring her journey as she tries to win back the throne that she feels belongs to her. And I can't disagree with her. So, alright, we're going to get on to the next one, and that would be Renata Varenza. She goes by several names, and she is the main character in the Rook and Rose trilogy. Guys, if you have not read the Rook and Rose trilogy, you are missing out. The first book is The Mask of Mirrors. You've heard me talk about it before. And Ren is just a really solid female character. There are other great female characters in the story as well. At some point, maybe I'll make a video all about the female characters, or just characters that I like in general from that series. But Ren is just a really fantastic character, and she's extremely nuanced by virtue of the fact that she has to be for the different roles that she plays in the story, because she starts out the story as a con artist, and so that requires her to wear several different hats, and it's just amazing to me how well that character is written, and I just thoroughly enjoyed learning about her, and some of the hats that she wears are just really fascinating, and how it's incorporated with the magic system. I just thought it was great. So yeah, Ren is one of my favorite characters, and we're going to move on to my third favorite character, or I guess it would be my second favorite character, since the first one was an honorable mention, right? Okay, so my second favorite female character is Tahanu from the Earthsea Cycle by Ursula K. Le Guin. Tahanu is a young girl. She has burns on her face, and because of that, she's looked down on by a lot of people. And there is just so much more to her character as the story progresses. I just really felt a strong connection to her. She's got some magical abilities that I won't go into, but I think are really worth spending time reading the series to see where that goes for her. And I just really enjoyed my time reading about her. One of the Earthsea books is called Tahanu, so it really focuses heavily on her character, and I think you'll really enjoy it. But I think you'll really enjoy the entire series. So check out the Earthsea Cycle by Ursula K. Le Guin. Tahanu is one of my favorite female characters. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one on this list, and that is Vasilisa Petrovna from the Winter Night trilogy by Catherine Arden. Vasilisa, or Vasya as she is also known for short, is the main protagonist in the Winter Night trilogy, And she is just a breath of fresh air compared to all of the other characters in this story. And it was written with that intention, I'm pretty sure. She was written to stand out amongst the other female characters because most of the female characters in this world are the subservient wives and extremely religious and devout and very meek and mild, and none of those things describe Vasya. She is definitely a wild child. She is deeply connected to the essences of nature and the spirits of nature that surround her in this world. The story is deeply rooted in Russian folklore and mysticism, and her character just drinks deeply of all of those things, and her magic is tied to that as well. I just absolutely loved Vasya's character, and the growth of her character as the series progresses is just so beautiful and fun to watch, and I just loved her entire character arc. So I highly recommend that series, and Vasya is a fantastic female character. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one, and this character comes from the Mistborn series. And you might be thinking, oh, Chaz, I know who this is. It's Vin, obviously. Actually, no. I honestly don't really like Vin that much. She's okay. There's nothing wrong with Vin's character. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but I don't actually like her character that much. There are other great characters in the first era of Mistborn that I enjoy more. No, this character comes from the second era of Mistborn, and that would be Marasi Combs. I was just thoroughly impressed with how well Brandon Sanderson wrote this character. There are other great female characters in this story as well, but Marasi really stood out to me as a formidable character in every sense of the word throughout the 4 books in this series. And part of that has to do with her ambition and her desire to stand out. She doesn't want to settle for the normal place of a woman in this society. It is a society that is still very traditional in its expectations of women and the roles that women are expected to play. And her sister Steris definitely fits into that mold, even though Steris is also a fantastic female character as well. And she stands out and is different from what's commonly expected of women in this world as well. But Marasi even more so. She's just not content to fill that typical role. She starts out as an investigative journalist and then ends up going into the police force, and that is just not something you see very often in this society. And she proves herself throughout the series to be extremely smart and capable and tenacious, thirsting for knowledge wherever she can get it, and I just absolutely adored her character. And as the series comes to an end, she gets involved in some things that I could really see her being a valuable part of. So Marasi is a fantastic character. I highly recommend Mistborn Era 2 if you haven't read it. Read Era 1 first, though. You really do have to. But once you get to Mistborn Era 2, look out for Marasi. She's fantastic. Alright, so we're going to move on to the next one, and that would be Malta Vestrit from the Live Ship Traders series by Robin Hobb. And I've got to be honest here, guys. I was really annoyed by Malta at the beginning of the series. She was just such a brat. I mean, she was a well-written brat, but she was a brat and just really obstinate, and everything had to be her own way, and if she didn't get her way with one person, she would go to another person. But over the course of the story, she grows and matures so drastically that by the end of the series, she was one of my favorite characters. Everything about her world was changing, and for a while there she just was not wanting to change, but life forced her to change, and she adapted and she grew, and she still maintained some of that fierce vigor and obstinance, but in a good way, in a way that allowed her to be her own person and take hold of the reins of her own life. And I just thought her character arc was fantastic. Robin Hobb did an excellent job with that character, as she does with so many of her characters in the realm of the Elderlings. But yeah, Malta Vestrit is one to watch out for. Absolutely loved that character, and I hope you check out that series. All right, so the next one on my list is Karen Murphy. Now, if you have not read the Dresden Files, guys, you are sorely missing out. And there are some really great female characters in the series, but Karen definitely takes the cake for me. And not just for me, she's a fan favorite with most Dresden fans. And she is one of the few women that is able to talk to Harry like he needs to be talked to, have those tough conversations with him, because she's on the police force, at least starting out the series. So she's willing to give Harry the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, she realizes how much he needs to be put in his place. And I think a lot of Harry's growth as a character I would attribute to Karen's presence in his life, because she's a very strong and capable woman who has worked hard to get where she is in life. And even though there's an element of attraction between her and Harry, Harry loves her very much in that respect, but he also has a deep respect for Karen because she's real and she's authentic with him. She's not just the standard woman that tends to come into his life and fall into his path. She's not the typical damsel in distress that he tends to seek out and try to rescue. She doesn't fit that mold at all, and so I just can't help but thoroughly enjoy every time I read her on the page. She's so well written. I can't say any more because I don't want to spoil anything, but you need to read the Dresden Files so that you can find out about Karen and watch her character arc and growth, because it's just awesome. So I'm going to move on to the next one here, and that would be Celia Bowen from The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Celia is a really interesting character because she is put in an impossible situation from the very beginning of the story, as is another person in the story, Marco, and they are destined to be pitted against each other in a competition, and I just really loved experiencing her character throughout the story. Erin Morgenstern has a way of writing characters that is just really immersive and makes them part of the atmosphere of the story, and I just really loved Celia's character. The Night Circus is one of my favorite novels of all time, and yeah, I think you will love Celia Bowen as much as I do when you read that book. So let's get to the next one here, and that would be Grianne Omsford from the Shannara series, specifically the Voyage of the Jurl Shannara series. And I won't go into too much detail with her. She starts out that series as somebody completely different and mysterious and unknown. In fact, she goes by a different name for the majority of that series. And so I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to say anything more, but I really, really like Grianne Omsford as a character, and I think you will too. If you have not read the Shannara series, you really are missing out, guys. It's fantastic. The next one on this list is Sakara from the Edan trilogy by Philip Chase. Guys, I recently read the Edan trilogy. I read it last year, and I really enjoyed it. It's a fantastic series, even though Sakara is not the main character. She's one of the main characters, but she's not the focal point main character of the story. But even still, she has so much depth to her, and the way she is written just gives you so much insight into who she is as a person, and insight into her emotions, and what's important to her, and it's very clear early on from the beginning of the story that she values the people around her and the people that she has been sworn to protect. And the relationship that is fostered between her and the primary character of Dayraven is just really interesting to see, because it's a relationship that she's destined to really never have with anyone. But fate pays her a hand that allows her to have Dayraven in her life in certain respects and still be able to come into power as the ruler of the kingdom that she's destined to rule. So it's really interesting to see her character. There are so many facets of her story that end up getting tied up neatly together at the end, and I just was there for all of it. I really enjoyed Sakara. I think you will too. And so, yes, please check out the Adan trilogy by Philip Chase. All right, so the next character on this list is Marie Curie, and she is one of the Master Scythes in the Scythe trilogy by Neil Shusterman. And guys, I absolutely loved Marie's character. She's witty, she's no nonsense, she has her own way of doing things, and yet she has a deep-seated moral code that permeates everything she does. And at first in the series, it kind of feels like she's a little bit standoffish and gruff and stoic. But as her character develops over time, you see some really deep emotions and a hunger for doing what is right. And I really appreciated her character growth throughout this story and all the different things that we learned about her as the story progressed. And I just think she's a fantastic character, and I would love to be under her tutelage because she has so much wisdom. And yeah, she's flawed just like any other human is, but she doesn't let that hold her back from being a strong and powerful voice in this world. I highly recommend the Scythe trilogy by Neil Shusterman, and Marie is definitely a character to watch. Alright, so we're going to move on here to the Expanse series. And guys, can you guess who my favorite female character is in the Expanse series? Can you guess it? You might be thinking Naomi right now, and no, it's not Naomi. It is Christian Avasarala, and Christian Avasarala is such an amazing character. She's a great comedy relief as well. Like, there were so many times that I was laughing out loud at some of the things she says, and like dropping my jaw at times too. There were some things that she said, I'm like, oh wow, she said that. And she's got an outrageous potty mouth, which I firmly appreciated. It was so funny to just hear her go off and just cussing people out. I absolutely love her character, and she's portrayed fantastically in the show as well, and I highly recommend both the show and the books. I started off watching the show first, and then I went to the books, and I was just waiting. I'm like, okay, when am I going to get to see Avasarala on the page? I need me some more Avasarala in my life. When is this going to happen? And when I finally got to see her character on the page for the first time, I was just hooked. Best female character in this series, in my personal opinion. And I have not read the entire series. She is just a force to be reckoned with. Alright guys, so we're moving on. We've got two more, okay? And the next one on the list is Prudence Beresford, also known as Tuppence, and she is one of two detectives in the Tommy and Tuppence series by Agatha Christie. And I just absolutely adore Tuppence. She's kind of naive at times. She gets herself in situations that she really probably shouldn't. She takes too many risks, but that's really what makes her character endearing. She's not satisfied with the status quo. She's not satisfying with getting answers the traditional way. She has to go and find the answers for herself to these mysteries that fall into their path. And a lot of times she's just gone and her husband Tommy has no idea where she went to. And then she'll eventually turn up with a bunch of answers that they've been looking for. And I just, she's so funny at times. Both of them are funny. Some of the best witty banter that I've ever experienced happens in the Tommy and Tuppence mysteries. But Tuppence is just such a breath of fresh air, so well written, and I love Agatha Christie in general, but I just have a special place in my heart for Tuppence Beresford. So, yeah, really great character, and I hope you will check out the Tommy and Tuppence Mysteries by Agatha Christie. All right, and the final character on this list, guys. The final character. And like I said, this is not ranked. These aren't in any particular order. This just happens to be the last one on the list. And that is Lisbeth Salander, the main protagonist in the Millennium Trilogy by Stieg Larsson. Most of you have probably heard of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. That's the first book in that series. And Lisbeth is just completely different than most female characters you will ever read. She is a complete and utter anarchist, at sometimes bordering on sadist. She doesn't care what anyone thinks. She does her own thing, and I really greatly admire her character. She's got a lot of trauma from her past, and there are times in the story that she is hell-bent on vengeance. So yes, it can be really dark, it can be gritty and violent. There's some sexual violence in the story as well, so you really have to be prepared for this series. I'm just putting that out there, but if you want to read an extremely well done female character, and you like thrillers and you don't mind really dark and gritty thrillers, you need look no further than Lisbeth Salander. She is just a fantastic character, one of my absolute favorites that I've ever read in fiction. And that's really saying something, because I've read a lot of female characters and so many of them pale in comparison to Lisbeth Salander. Some of the female characters on this list pale in comparison to her. I just really, really enjoyed reading her character, and I do plan to reread the series at some point. It's that good. So that's my list, guys. I would love to know in the comments who some of your favorite female characters are. Maybe they're some of the ones that I listed here. Maybe they're not. Maybe you're ready to chastise me for saying that Vin from Mistborn Era 1 is not one of my favorite characters. You can hit me with that chastisement in the comments if you want to. Feel free. I'm ready for it. I'm braced for it. But yeah, let me know, guys, who some of your favorite characters are. And until next time, make sure you're reading more books, and I will talk with you very soon. And I would like to give a huge shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, and I appreciate you so much.